cells
if
coming
the
from other
set of all-
cells. It's not all of them.
Yeah, look, if the set of all cells is such that there's only cells in it, right? Then that means that it can't come from other cells, right? Because then that would be in the set of all cells. So I don't know how the hell that would happen.
I don't know what you mean by not all. As far as I'm aware, that's what scientists believe. I can send you some sources if you want.
Yeah, please do that.
It does.
That actually may just be a logically incoherent view. I'm not really sure though.
Well, it's the scientific view, and that's what I learned in biology class. I mean, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. That's what I've always been taught.
Okay. Yeah, well, if you have like a response to what I said about the set of all cells, if they come from different cells, well, that's not actually.
No, the theory is that all cells come from cells. I mean, the only explanation, right, to how they don't is from spontaneous generation, which was disproven. Which is the idea that cells can just appear out of nowhere, and so now that's spontaneous generation's evolved over time, and now it's abiogenesis.
Yeah, but like, what's the response to what I said though?
What did you say again?
I said that if the set of all cells is such that there's other cells outside of it causing it, then that's not actually the set of all cells, because there's a greater set, right, of other cells.
That's still cells coming from cells.
Yeah.
I never thought what type.
But it wouldn't be the case that all cells came from other cells, right? Because all cells means each and every. So if it's each and every cell, then it can't come from other cells.
Why not?
I just told you why.
No, you didn't.
Yeah.
You said that.
Okay.
No. If it sounds to me like you're using an
maybe I should write this down for you or something. Hold on.
So
No,
maybe I could just chime in, right? And say, like, my understanding of what he's saying is that if all cells came from other cells, there's no way to get a cell to begin with.
Yes, exactly. So, my friend, you just used an argument against infinite regress. Congratulations.
No. I'm just saying what I understand to be said, right?
Yeah, that's what. Yeah, well, if that's the understanding.
Yeah, I never said that they wouldn't come.
Contradicting himself.
Look, I don't have to hold the view that like life has always existed. So I don't even know how that would.
That's the belief you were defending earlier, and now you've just changed your mind. You've got to provide the logical.
No. Wait. No. When did I hold that view? Wait, this guy's.
You were defending it earlier. Earlier, you were defending it. You were asking me to provide the contradiction. Now I'm going to ask you to provide the contradiction.
Wait, no. I never said that all life has always existed. Like, I just hold the view that, like, probably, like, things have always existed. There can be, like, things that don't have life.
So why can't cells have just always existed?
What?
Do you think that?
Well, no, I never said I did. I'm asking him, but why doesn't he think that?
That cells... I don't have a view on it.
No. You said that all cells can't come from other cells because you would never get one cell to begin with. Well, my answer to you is why can't we just have an infinite regressive cells?
I thought he said. I could be wrong. I could totally be wrong here.
No, okay. So picture this, right? You have a set of all red things. Can there be any red thing outside of that set?
Can there be a red thing outside of a set of red things? Yeah.
No.
Thing
outside of the set
of all
red things.
The set is going to be encompassing the aggregate of all members that possess the predicate of red. So there can't be anything excluded to the set that partakes in redness.
Yeah. Look, if there was by all, that just means each and everything that is red. So each and everything is what is meant by all. So that means if there is something that's red, necessarily it's in the set of all red things. So if there is something that's a cell, necessarily it's in the set of all cells. So if you're saying that there's a cell causing the set of all cells, then that's actually probably just like contradictory. I'm not quite sure though. But
but the reason why is because why can't there be an infinite regressive cells?
I never said that there couldn't.
Okay, well,
I was just refuting what you were saying about cell theory.
He keeps asking you why you don't believe that.
No. So let me tell you my explanation. The explanation you would have to give. My explanation would be that God is the original cell, and since God is infinite, that
Wait. What do you mean by cell?
Well, to the scientific definition of a cell.
Wait, so God is explicable in terms of science? So I thought that by God you meant like some like supernatural entity, not like a natural one.
Supernatural doesn't. It can't be explained by science.
Wait, so you're just giving an argument that we could be committed to? Like we could just be committed to this conclusion? Like so what? We would just say it's a natural entity.
I mean, but wouldn't that like create the problem that you pointed out, Turns? Because he would like appeal to a cell that's gonna fall within the things like that are gonna be cells, all of the cells together, like all things considered to be cells, and then he wants to explain why there is such a thing, right? By appealing to the cell itself, right?
So
but you said that
his explanation of cell theory. Listen, I didn't invent cell theory. Cell theory is a scientific belief. I'm saying that for his explanation, because he's saying, well, where did the original cell that caused the other cells to come from? I say it came from God. You would have to say there's an infinite regressive.
Look, you said that scientists hold the belief that all cells are such that they come from other cells.
Yeah.
But that's logically
the problem here is that you're correct in saying that cell theory says that. What you're incorrect about is applying cell theory to abiogenesis, right? Where the first cell came from is.
I'm saying that. I'm saying that Turns, on the other hand, here is denying what scientists believe based on an argument against infinite regress. Because I just told him that you can just have an infinite regress of cells.
What I think's happening here is
the only answer. That'd be the only explanation to cell theory.
I think you're misapplying this, right? Where like you know how
response to what?
To what I was saying. Like obviously scientists don't hold to this.
They do. You can look at it.
I'm not even sure how it's relevant.
They do.
Like, it just sounds like a total red herring from what I was saying about naturalism.
You're just a denier. You're just a science denier.
What?
Did scientists do?
Okay, look. The scientists hold that the set of all cells is such that it comes from other cells.
Yes, they do.
No, that's not the view in abiogenesis, right? Like,
yeah, I'm not talking about abiogenesis. I'm talking about cell theory.
Well, but I mean, the claim of abiogenesis is going to be that you can have cells that come from non-cells.
Yeah, but abiogenesis is not something that any scientist officially holds because it's not proven.
And also, like, either way, what does this have to do with God? Like, even if he's committed to the idea that there has to be like some, building blocks that are not going to be like coming from non-living matter or whatever, right, within the universe.
Yeah, his argument.
Why would that entail God? I'm not following. Like, if you think that's going to be like a condition for life to be like explained in order to be like satisfied, then like he can even grant you that condition. But I don't like see an argument for God in there.
Yeah, well, that's because I have to move on to my next point for us to get the argument of God. I'm not finished yet. I'm just saying that there's only two explanations to cell theory: either infinite regress, or you have God, because God can cause
no. I don't think that follows.
Yeah,
that's
I'm
not
sure.
Why not? Okay. Well, can you give a third explanation?
Abiogenesis.
Abiogenesis. Okay. Can you prove abiogenesis?
Nope. Can you prove the logical impossibility of abiogenesis?
Like, can you disprove abiogenesis?
No, but I can't disprove the logical inherency of the flying spaghetti monster either. That doesn't mean it's true.
That's correct, but it means it's a possibility.
It's a possibility, but why should I believe it?
Because you make the claim that all things are caused by other things. All cells come from other cells.
Yes, because
right?
If we don't,
so for you to make that claim, you have to prove that it's impossible for abiogenesis to have happened.
Wait, if you're relying on science, wouldn't you just be committed to like polytheism? Because I take it that you think that cells come from like individual cells, right? And there's multiple cells that have to interact to cause the other ones. So you would just be committed to some sort of like polytheism if you're using this argument.
What? No. Okay. First of all, one at a time. First of all, you're saying why? Then why does it entail God? Because, like I was saying, so you're saying about abiogenesis. I'm not saying that abiogenesis is impossible. I'm not saying that I can 100% prove God. I'm saying I can prove God is the most likely scenario, because we can't disprove, right, a positive. So you can't disprove a positive.
That's totally fine. I'm fine with that, but you should probably use a word different than prove.
Okay. Yeah, but the reason why we say prove is because we can't prove anything. We can't prove gravity because we.
Okay, I don't know why would you say God is more likely. What's the argument for that?
I'm not finished, am I? Because we've been stuck on this one point. I have to get to my conclusion, don't I? I can't prove God with the first point. I have to get to my conclusion.
But if the first point doesn't hold, then it's not valid in the argument.
It does hold, because no one's given me an alternative. No, because listen, this is my view on life, right?
You still have not disproved the argument that I told you, right? You said first that
so I don't. Yeah, because
right?
because this is the reason why, right? My goal here today
I think you're I think it's fine for you to say that cell theory says that all cells come from other cells. But if you think that cell theory is about how the first cell appeared, you're incorrect. It's about cells like that we deal with today, right? It doesn't care about what happened, like why.
Yeah, I didn't say it was invented to say that, but it logically follows that though. No, but you're misunderstanding my point anyway. What I'm saying is, I'd say I'm not trying to prove that like God, right, is like the only explanation. I'm saying it's the most plausible because that's what we have to do in this physical world. We can't disprove anything really because anything could be true.
Can you present an argument for that?
Most likely.
Like, why would you say God is most likely?
Like, I can't disprove abiogenesis.
Oh, actually, Marco, if you look in the text chat, I've written it out. He gave us the premises and the conclusion for his argument. You can actually read it there. We haven't gotten past P1.
Okay, let's just grant P1 so we can just move on. But I just think that's
I think we could grant all 5 premises and the conclusion still doesn't follow, right? Even though I think there's issues with like literally every premise in the argument. I think the whole thing is pretty bad.
I mean, the argument is not even valid, but I mean,
false. But we can just grant some of it.
Right. The conclusion, probably like the conclusion is a claim. It's another claim.
It's not.
Yeah, I think like actually that every premise is false. Probably, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so premise 2, the universe was caused to exist. Okay, so what do you mean by a universe there?
The physical universe.
What do you mean by that's you just appealed to the term I'm asking you to define in the definition. So what do you mean by universe there?
Everything physical.
Okay. So by physical?
Physical means we can perceive it with our senses.
So everything that we can perceive through our senses is caused to exist. So there can be like physical things that we just can't perceive that, aren't caused?
No, because we can perceive everything physical.
No, I mean like
do you think
you can perceive everything from like
Name something.
5 galaxies away or something? Like that's physical, supposedly.
No, but you don't have to perceive it, but we can perceive it. If we went to that galaxy, we would be able to perceive it.
Oh, so you mean it's like logically possible to perceive? Okay, then like God is possible to perceive, right?
Sorry.
If that's what you mean, then you're gonna have the exact same issue.
No, we can't perceive God with our physical senses.
So you like can't sense
God's
God.
Spiritual. No, because God's spiritual. He's not physical.
Wait,
so
are
we
you
can't
Christian?
perceive it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you don't perceive God in any way. You don't detect God in any way.
I didn't say that.
You don't detect God in any way. So you can't like hear God? You don't think that's like perceiving?
I didn't say that. I said we cannot perceive.
That's like a consequence of what you said.
No, it's not. I'll explain.
Yeah.
I said we can't perceive God with our physical senses, but we don't just have physical senses. We also have spiritual senses.
Do you take hearing to be a physical sense?
What is a sense?
It's hearing, seeing, feeling.
Well, you're listing senses for me, right? But I still don't know what a sense is definitionally.
It's a faculty where you can perceive a stimulus.
So what the hell do you mean by perceive?
Then? Well, no, I think that's a fine definition. But now, when you're talking about spiritual senses, right? What are What is a spiritual stimulus?
Yeah. Well, I can't give an answer to that question.
So why is spiritual sense a useful term?
I never said it was. I didn't really like it.
You literally just used it.
No, he's the one who brought spiritual senses up.
No, it was you, man. Like you said that we have spiritual senses.
Why would
and we don't know what you mean by that.
That's so silly for you to say that I brought that up.
Yeah, you said how do we perceive God? Then you have the same issue.
Yeah.
Well, that's weak. Well, I got all the issues in the world, man. But your argument is what we're dealing with.
Yeah. So spiritual senses. Yeah, I can't get. So spiritual means the non-physical realm which exists. How do I?
You said that we receive stimulus from this, right? What is a spiritual stimulus?
No.
Yes.
No, I said the word sense.
Why are you
I said the word sense.
And how did you define sense?
Yeah, as perceiving a stimulus.
Okay, so if we have spiritual sense, we obviously receive spiritual stimuli.
Yeah. Well,
Okay, so what is a spiritual stimulus? You were able to give me. You listed a bunch of senses for me, right? Sight, hearing, sound. So what are your what are spiritual stimulus?
That does seem like an issue. Yeah.
Well, I told you I don't know. I don't have an answer to that.
So it doesn't seem like a very useful term for us to use.
I think you do know. You're just not telling us because you know that if you do tell us, right, it's just going to be the case that God's going to be physical under that account, right? Or we're going to be sensing God, and then God's going to need. We're going to need.
He can just paint some kind of symmetry. He can just say like that same way that we can perceive objects which are physical with our physical senses, we can perceive objects which are spiritual with our spiritual senses. Therefore, there's spiritual objects under this construct. I mean, that's all there is to it. I don't understand what's the issue.
Yeah, so what would be like is he defined physical as something that is perceivable. So if that's how he's defining physical, then God's first of all going to be physical. Second of all, if he's saying that something in virtue of it being physical needs some sort of cause or explanation, then God's going to need a cause or explanation.
No, because I explained.
Okay, why?
Okay. No, because I addressed that in my. And so I addressed that in my fifth premise.
Is this a formal argument? Wait, is this a formal argument?
Because it's outside of time and outside the universe. So what?
It's in the text chat.
Can I ask him to reread the formal argument? Because I just want to hear
text chat. It just
I'm driving.
I have it posted.
Sorry.
Okay.
Okay.
So premise 1, everything was caused to exist. Premise 2, the universe was caused to exist. Premise 3, the only way that something cannot have been caused to exist is if it is infinite. Premise 4, the cause must be infinite because otherwise it must also have a cause. Premise 5, the cause is outside of time and outside the universe. Conclusion, this cause is alive and living.
Not even a valid argument.
Actually, to be honest, I think no. Sorry, the conclusion is supposed to be premise 6, and the conclusion is that the cause is outside the universe. It's alive and it's living. I didn't actually notice that. I think like the way you wrote it. I think
one of the premises, like the proposition, is identical to the conclusion. You realize that's question begging, right?
So I'll change the conclusion to P6, and what's the new conclusion?
The conclusion is that the cause is infinite, outside the universe and living.
Wait, you realize that all you've done?
He just needs to reorganize it. Right? Yeah, you just have to reorganize it. Yeah, you just need to reorganize.
So if I say premise 1, atheism is true. Premise 2, God does not exist. Conclusion, atheism is true and God does not exist. Do you think that that's the sort of argument that's going to be informative?
No, that's a false equivalence. You haven't actually.
So
to be
as generous as possible to Austin, what I think is happening here is that you're trying to combine 3 separate arguments, right? Because like you were saying, you're not trying to prove with 100% certainty God. You're trying to suggest it to be probable, right? So maybe this should be 3 separate arguments, and then you can use those 3 arguments as support for the probability of
I'm
God.
going to quickly point this out.
Like, as it is, this argument is like ridiculous.
Look, all of these premises are like obviously like false, but and they also need to be substantiated. But let me just look at premise 5 and premise 6. So the cause is outside of time and outside the universe. This cause is alive and living. The cause is infinite outside the universe and living. Look, that's just a question begging argument, right? All you've done is you've just conjuncted 2 different premises together, right? That we don't have any reason to accept in the first place.
Yeah, I explain why. Okay, so the reason why it's alive and living is because all living things come from other living things.
What makes you think that?
That's not. Yeah, you haven't.
Yeah,
we provided you with a counterclaim of abiogenesis, which you have failed to disprove.
No, because that's not a counterclaim. That's like you saying atheism is true. Me saying, oh no, but the flying spaghetti monster is real. That's just an idea.
I'm not talking. I'm talking about scientific. I'm talking about valid scientific theory here.
No, it's not. It's not scientific theory.
That's an odd claim.
Yeah, because it's not. It's there's no proof of it. There's proof of amino acids.
We're not talking about mathematics. We're not talking about proof. We're talking
I never said mathematics.
Theory.
Yeah,
you said proof. We won't find proof of abiogenesis. We will.
Okay, well, for example,
we will find supporting evidence for the theory.
For example, evolution is a scientific theory because the proof is the fossils and the carbon dating. That's the proof.
That is a false.
That's taken to be evidence. Hold on, it's taken to be evidence, not it's taken.
Yes,
it is.
It is.
Yeah,
evolution.
Just ask him what's the evidence for abiogenesis. Just ask him what's the evidence.
Yeah, what's the evidence?
There are lots of studies that you can look at the amyloid world hypothesis. Like there are.
Looked at the evidence. All they've managed to produce is amino acids. They've never produced a living thing. So until they do, it's not something worth considering. Until they do.
Well, look, I definitely agree with Turns here that like overall your conclusion, it's like triple begging the question here. You're just
because you guys are just simply saying.
But I think
let me explain my word for you.
I do commend you in being willing to put this forward in a formal argument, but having done so, I think it'd be very good if you were like willing to accept criticism about it, and we can like together improve it.
No, so I'm not willing to accept criticism. What I'm saying is that you're saying that I'll not be able to prove any of these things. So every time I ask you, can you give me an alternative? You always say, no, I can't give you an alternative, but that doesn't mean you're right. That's what you've done for every single one of my points. You've not given me one alternative. Like, I'm just stating things which are true, and you said they're not true, and I said, give me an alternative, and you've said, no, I can't.
Yeah, I mean, this is just my opinion, of course, but in an ideal scenario, you want to start with something that at least the other, your audience is at least one premise that they're going to accept.
Yeah, well, they would, and so I've debated them on them, and they've not given me any alternative.
Yeah, did they accept any of the premises?
No, and I'm shocked that they don't, because I don't see because they can't give an argument against it. Like for example, he brought abiogenesis. Give me some proof. He said, "I don't have any." Shifting the burden.
No, well, let's just address the issue here. Do you think that? So I mean, like, if you were to look at William Lane, if you were to look at William Lane Craig's argument, like he specifically, I think in his argument, he specifically says, that everything that begins to exist has a cause. Isn't that his like version of the Kalam? So I think I'd start with something like that. Are people going to accept that? That's very...
No, I wouldn't.
So you think that everything that begins to exist doesn't require a cause?
Yeah, I don't think it implies it like by any kind of a priori reasons.
Well, that's a contradiction, bro. If it begins
why would that be a contradiction?
That means if it begins to exist, then that means it had to, so you're saying that it could begin to exist for no reason, then, is what you're saying?
Well, it can... Yeah, like it can begin to exist and it wouldn't like have a cause. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So this is the difference, right, between your view and my view. My view relies on evidence. So if something's theoretically possible but it's not proven, I'm not going to accept it. But you do. There's the difference. You say, okay, well, I've never observed anything that was caused to exist, that wasn't caused to exist, but it's possible, so I'm going to accept it. My view
is going to be like more virtuous, erotically virtuous.
My view.
Wait, now hold on. Wait, he says
it's accept it.
Why does he say? Wait, I want to know why it's more theoretically virtuous. Why is it more theoretical?
Like, if we accept the causal principle, right, I'm just gonna like apply the more narrow version, and that would be simpler, and therefore theoretically more virtuous. For example, everything that begins to exist in observable part of the universe seems to have a cause, and the more narrow version would entail that there are less things. So if the narrow version is true, then the narrow version is true, then the broad version could be false. But if the broad version is true, then the narrow version has to be true. So there is no kind of observation that the broader version could, explain that the narrow version could not explain. So any inductive evidence would entail narrow version, and narrow version would entail less things.
Yeah, but by your worldview, nothing can be true because you're just saying, we've never observed anything that wasn't caused to exist, but there could be, so therefore I don't accept the premise. By that logic, we can negate anything. Oh, gravity exists. Oh, maybe, but maybe it doesn't somewhere else, or whatever. It's like, from what we can observe, it's true. So just because there could be somewhere else where we don't observe it, it's not true. It's irrelevant. The point is, if there's something that we observe, right, everything's caused to exist. It's a premise we should be able to accept. Maybe one day we'll find out that it's not true, but until that day comes, we have to work by what we can observe. If we just go everything based on, it could be this, then we'll never learn anything.
I don't think you understood what I said. Can you address like what I said as an objection?
Well, let me address what you said, right? I mean, How do you factor inferential knowledge into your view? How does the narrow?
Why would inferential knowledge be a problem under the narrow version?
Because I'm wondering if you think that inferential knowledge is something that you can observe strictly. Like, for instance, when we reason, we seem to think that there's something normative at play, right? And that there's a connection between some valid premises and the conclusion, that entailments naturally follow. right? And this is precisely the kind of thing that the causal principle seems to be analogous to, right? And so in this situation, I'm wondering if you think that inferences are observable or the effects, in this case, inferences that there are specific causes and that there is some consistent relationship that holds between certain things, either analytic truths.
Are you saying like that if you adopt the view, right, of anti-realism about causality, that you cannot make inferences?
Well, I'm saying it gives us reason to question your argument, because if things can just be asserted and there isn't any causal connection or any normative force at play, right? If there isn't actually any consistent relationship that holds between the things being discussed, then we don't even have reason to accept your argument, right? What would be the reasons for us to accept your argument?
Wait a second. So, all I'm saying is that the possibility prima facie would be there, right? You cannot rule it out, right? And it seems like when you try to apply the broader version, then the more narrow version is just going to be more virtuous. And I can explain the virtues, right? And also I don't see why being an anti-realist about causality would entail that you cannot make inferences. That just doesn't follow.
It doesn't entail that you can't make inferences. What it entails is that inferences are not reliable because you've called into question the inductive principle, right? And that's what you have in mind.
No, I don't think anyway. In order for you to have reliable, to appeal to some kind of sense that you can have a view of nature that's going to be not entailing any kind of causal notions, that's going to entail that the inferences are not going to be reliable about nature. What do you take causality to be?
Well, I'm trying to figure out what you take it to be, because it seems to be that it's some sort of consistent relationship where one thing is dependent upon another.
Well, it's going to be more than that, right? So under regularity theory, right, you don't have to have any kind of causal relation between things, understood in a way that there is going to be a necessary connection. Or even when it comes to probabilistic causation, I don't think it's going to be even necessary.
Yeah, I'm not sure that I follow that, right? What do you mean by regularity in that sense? I guess I'm not really sure what you're trying to say.
Well, regularity theory is not going to be it's going to be just theory that laws of nature, right? At least what we refer to as being laws of nature, right, are not going to be nothing more than just a collection of all of the instances that we can observe. So the world would not be governed by any laws, and laws wouldn't cause anything. It would just be description of the world. And when we say that there is succession of events A and B, there's not going to be any kind of necessary connection understood to be there between the two events. And necessary connection would be understood. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, if there's no necessary connection there, look, that's fine if that's your view, but I don't think that view can be consistent with somebody who uses science even as a pragmatic tool, right? Because
I don't see that. Why not? It seems Bertrand Russell gave this objection and he gave arguments, right? And he said causation is just going to be a confusion. You don't need it for science. And he was one of the philosophers of science.
Well, I think that's going to be, again, this is going to be a question of how causation is cashed out, right? I'm saying that.
How do you cash out causation? I can explain how I cashed out causation, but how do you cash out causation then?
Yeah, I'm just saying that I think that there's going to be differing types of causation. There's going to be some type of temporal causation. There might be some type of atemporal causation. But strictly speaking, there's just going to be some relationship.
I don't think atemporal causation is going to be understood to be causation. I think when people invoke it, like William Lane Craig, it just sounds like some kind of ontological dependence, view of grounding in metaphysics.
I've never heard him invoke it. So
okay, but I'm saying I don't think it makes sense to describe that view as causation. So to me, you can call it causation, but when we kind of see what conceptual analysis does, I don't see any kind of notion of causation there at all. So
okay, well,
it seems like the causation that you would be referring to is going to be temporal one, and also it's not just going to be that you have succession of events, that one event follows the other, conjunction of events. You're saying there is going to be something stronger in ontological sense, there is going to be a necessary connection between events.
Yeah, that's correct. There's a relationship between the events.
What's the argument for the necessary connection between events?
What's the argument for the necessary connection
between events? Yeah.
Well, this is just going to be. There's going to be. I think.
First of all, I want to ask you: is it a priori or a posteriori argument?
Well, I think that you can. It seems like somebody like Immanuel Kant is going to give some sort of priori argument for causation, isn't he?
No, he does. He's not a causal realist, no.
No, but he does. No, but he does have some sort of view. He does have some sort of view about causation. I just don't remember what it is. But
he doesn't hold the view that causality is going to be mind-independent or objective feature of the external world.
He does hold, or he doesn't hold?
No, he doesn't hold that view.
He doesn't hold the view that causality is going to be a mind-independent feature.
Yeah, he doesn't. Yeah.
Which means he holds that it's a mind-dependent feature.
Yeah, he's a conceptualist.
Well, I don't have an issue with that. I don't see why that's an issue.
Well, I mean, I didn't say like I have an issue with that. I'm having an issue with causality in a like causal realism sense.
Oh, okay. Well, let's just think about, okay, well, and I don't want to be a pain in the ass, but when realism is invoked, right, I think the question is, first of all, one of the qualifications of something being real, typically speaking, is that it has causal efficacy. I mean, it's just going to seem to be some sort of problem for you to say that anything's real if you don't allow for causality. Yeah,
like, that's just going to beg the question as to why.
No, but you understand the criticism, right? The classic.
I'm just saying, like, it's gonna fail when you try to like give an analysis. I don't see like why would that be the case.
Because classically speaking, right, when people talk about something being real, one of the criteria that's typically invoked for realism is causal efficacy.
Yeah, but we are questioning the like efficient causation here to begin with.
Well, yeah,
why would we think that's real?
What's that?
Why would we think that efficient causation is going to be real? Because in the sense that it's going to be like mind-independent.
Because it's reflected in our thought and talk, as well as it has pragmatic utility for the way we live.
Well, that's going to be like compatible with that not being real. There is no issue.
How is that the case?
Well, it's compatible as not being the event of the like in the world, like external feature of the world. We agree that Kantian view holds that, and you said you have no objection to that. You're fine with that. So why is like that suddenly a problem now?
No. It's the only issue I'm having right now is the issue with the analysis of realism, right? Typically, the analysis of realism is that there's something that's responsible for our thought and talk, and that thing which is responsible is taken to have causal efficacy, right? When we say it's responsible,
no, but you don't have to take that view, right? Sort of like you're asserting that you have to take that view for realism. You don't have to.
Okay, I'm not saying you have to take the view. No.
Okay, so we are not taking like. Okay, so if it's fine if you don't take that view, you agree, right?
And it's okay, and I'm going to accept an alternate view. I just want you to tell me what the alternate view of realism would be.
Okay, so like, do we agree, right, that if you invoke realism, that you don't have to invoke efficacy? Or do you think like there is some kind of necessity for it to be invoked?
I'm being totally honest with you. I've never considered it. I've never considered what criteria would there need to be for realism. I've only read, and typically what I've read, particularly in metaethics, is that when people begin to discuss like robust realism, right, that causal efficacy is one of the major criterion. So if there's some other way to cash out realism, I'm open to hear it. I'm just telling you honestly and plainly, I've never heard it. Just consider me uneducated on that point.
Yeah. So I mean, I'm just saying, like, when it comes to like you earlier invoking, depends. Like, first of all, when you earlier invoked non-temporal causation, right? Like, I don't take that view to be talking about causation, right? So if you are talking about like some kind of explanation, grounding relation, dependence relation, in a non-temporal sense, like, I just wouldn't take that to be like a causal notion. What I take causal notion to be is that there is going to be some kind of necessary connection between event A and event B, right? And that necessary connection cannot be like a mere conjunction between two events, and it cannot be based on like regularity theory of nature. Right, in a sense like that, it's just going to be simply the collection of all of the instances, right? It would probably like entail some kind of necessitarian theory of the laws of nature, right? And that would imply that there is like some kind of principle that would cover the events and processes in the world, right? And that kind of event would, like, under this view, right, might entail like some causal notions and stuff like that, right? But it's not necessary for you to invoke realism that you have to invoke causal notion, in a sense that there is a necessary connection between events in the like in empirical domain that we observe, right? Or that actually we have to presuppose them a priori, right? It doesn't entail any kind of contradiction, right? It's not going to be deducible as a logical theorem, right? Also, like, when it comes to empirical observations, it's not going to be that we can observe such a thing at all. It's not like even that we have to presuppose it at all in order for us to have like explanations about things. So I don't see like why would we have to like invoke a notion of causation that I define as a necessary connection between two events. But if you mean something else by causation, right, then it might be like a semantic dispute.
No, I'm willing to clarify, and I am driving on the highway. So, but look, for clarification, like I would accept some form of minimal realism by which things are just descriptive. That's fine if you want to say that. But this only brings us back to the original question, which is with respect to inferential knowledge, or with respect to the use of something like classical logic itself. It seems that we expect there to be something normative at play, right? That there is actually something there regulating it, right? So I think the issue is that if we don't rely on it, right? If we think it's just some sort of interpretation, I think that there's some sort of strength or validity that's robbed from the use of classical reasoning.
Yeah, like I don't see like why would the inference rules, when we talk about conclusions and stuff, like why would that entail causal realism?
Well, entailing causal realism only in the sense that we are actually relying on something that we take to have efficacy in producing a result, right? That it's not just a mere conjunction.
That doesn't have to entail this necessary connection at all between events.
Well, let me give you an example. Sure, let me give you an example. So, all men are mortal. Socrates is a man, therefore Socrates is mortal, right? Well, since mortality is contained within being a man, right?
By the way, I have to take a piss quickly. I'll be back. Like, you can
fine.
just, just give me a second.
Yeah, I don't know if anybody else is following along, but the point here of this piece is that, like, with an analytic truth, it's logically necessary that that the entailment which follows, right, that it's contained within the initial predicate, right? That the conclusion is actually contained within the predicate, right? So for something to be true by definition, there are necessary conditions. There's no real way to kind of escape that, unless you want to deny like analytic truths exist. But anyway, before he comes back, it doesn't matter so much about causation. It matters, at least under his view, which he views to only be a temporal thing. What matters is the dependence relation, right? And if something is contingent upon something else, even in the atemporal or metaphysical sense, right? That also matters to the discussion that Austin was having. Austin, are you still there? Sorry, what?
Austin left a long time ago.
He
said he had to leave. Yeah.
Oh, God. Well, then I don't know. Whatever. I mean, I was curious to see if he was going to be able to improve his argument. That's all.
I think he said that he was not willing to accept criticism.
No. Actually, I thought he said. Well, I could be wrong, but I thought he said he was willing to accept it, but he had some other objection, which honestly I couldn't understand. I got a lot of road noise. I was like driving, so sorry.
All good. Be safe, yo.
Yeah, no worries. I mean, I'm fine if the conversation wants to change, unless Marco comes back. It's whatever. I don't care. It doesn't matter to me.